property management company comes in and start dealing with the tenant, and then everything else that goes with the property once there's a tenant, when it's ready and habitable for them to come in and do what they do.
Brian, I know you touched on wholesaling and home equity loans, how to use those to get cash to move with. I'm interested in seller financing. Could you touch on that and explain more about seller financing and how that works?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, you find a seller who is willing to hold the note as if they're the bank, right? So I got this property. I want 150,000 for it. I'm trying to make a move. I want to move to Florida. I just got to get rid of this thing. You give me 30% down. You give me 45,000. I'll hold the note at 8%, and you pay me on the remaining 90-something thousand. You pay me, $1,200 a month. So what happens is the seller, the owner, becomes the bank for you. Now, in some cases, depending on how cash strapped they are, right? They some of them. So let's just say you walk into a situation where there's a owner who's owned a property for a very long time, and it had its glory years some time ago. And so for the last 7-8 years, it's been sucking wind. Although they own it free and clear, they getting older, right? They're in the retirement phase. This thing caused them more problems than good, and they just like, you know what? Just give me 10, 20,000 down, and you take this thing over and deal with all the issues. Pay me X amount of dollars a month, and then in 5 years, I want you to be able to refinance me out. I'm gonna call the note due. Right? So when you do seller financing, more often than not, it's gonna be a shorter term. They're gonna want you to get them out of the way sooner in the process. So whereas on a 30-year mortgage with a traditional lender, even a 20-year mortgage, when you do seller financing, more often than not, they giving you a means to get going, but then they're gonna want you to get them out the way probably within a 2 to 5 year interval. So the idea is that you can get in low entry to barrier or low barrier to entry, and then, start doing whatever you need to do to the building to get it stabilized, and in a favorable spot. And then you at some point go and take out the debt to pay them off. I mean, or you could go and sell it. At that point, you'll have control over the property. They'll just be holding the note, the mortgage note, essentially on the property, as if they were the bank, just with a much different set of terms. So people that are illiquid, people that are challenged with credit, that's a really good strategy for them in many cases. For me, if there's a rehab component, I could see seller financing being a disadvantage, because unless you liquid already, or you got to go raise the capital. So you could avoid some of the upfront costs from being with a bridge lender, asset-based lender, mortgage company. But then if you got a rehab component and you're not liquid to do the rehab, then that money got to come from somewhere. So at least if you were to originate with a bridge loan or asset-based loan, which we'll talk about today, then you could build in that rehab component that you already don't have. The lender would give you that rehab money up front. So those are the things that you got to look at going into a seller finance situation. More often than not, it's going to be more of a distress situation. So you probably going to need to put some resources into it in order to get it back to the place that they couldn't anymore. So that's just something to consider. You ain't going to really buy turnkey seller finance properties, because why would they get rid of it? You know what I mean?
I got the information in terms of what you're looking for, in terms of their let's call it their way of doing business with the property management company, right? And their standards or requirements. What what my question is more of, what are the physical expectations of a property management company? Like, let's say if we're doing a cash flow, right? We're doing a renter. Are they responsible, or typically rather, are they responsible for the landscaping, right? Keeping the hedges, the grass, all of that stuff. Is that something separate? Or are they just dealing with the maintenance things that break, right? Broken window, something like that. And then with that, what what expectations does the renter, right, have on them in terms of keeping the property up to a certain standard?
That will vary depending on if it's single family or if it's multifamily. Okay. That also vary from company to company. But I'll give you more of a specifically general answer. Okay. That would be, yes, you could find a company that does all of that. You'll find a property management company that'll take care of the landscaping. They'll actually take care of having somebody clean up the common area if it were like a building. On the tenant side, they don't know you. Like if you're doing it the right way, you don't exist. So they look at their property management company as kind of the owner, to be quite honest. They're there everything for everything, and probably more than what it should be at times. So yeah, they'll call them about any and everything wrong with the property, or wrong with their rent or inability to pay, or all those types of things. And the property management company becomes a gatekeeper. They deal directly with the tenant. They do the rent collections, and then depending on what interval that they make deposits to you on, y'all to kind of understand what that cadence of the business is. It may be every 45 days that they do owner distributions. Many of them don't do 30 days anymore. So it'll probably be 45 days, but once you get used to it, because they want to build up a reserve at first, and then it's just a thing. So most of them do 45 days. I've seen some as much as 60, which is crazy to me, right? I think 45 days is probably a good spot. If you could find somebody 30, cool. If not, 45 days is a good spot.
Okay, and just a quick follow-up when talking about that. So that was for cash flow. When you're talking about doing a fix and flip, I know the contractor have this. I'm pretty set on what my expectations for a certain contractor
Right.
and whatever sector they're working in.
Yeah.
Right. But do you look at it as a good idea to have the property management company, even if it's on a lower grade property management company, handling that stuff as well in terms of the upkeep of the lawn? We're here in Michigan, we start doing that right about now, right?
Right.
Upkeep of the lawn and weed and feed and edge and the whole type tree branches like you mentioned it earlier. Is that something we need to have the property management company? Is that something that needs to be kind of involved as well?
So I just want to make this clear distinction. I'm glad you asked that question. When some of the apprentices been talking about project management, we use project management for rehab. Property management, it could be for cash flow too. Like I got a project manager that runs the rehabs on our cash flow. Property management company comes in and start dealing with the tenant, and then everything else that goes with the property once there's a tenant, when it's ready and habitable for them to come in and do what they do.